Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and frequently I point out to people that the best way to get strong is to get bigger. I've made many videos explaining why, the science behind it, the biology behind it, everything else of why the majority of our strength gains come from size. Now, people say, but okay, how do we get big then? And I'm glad that you asked that. And I think something to keep in mind is that getting big has been massively overcomplicated, particularly online, particularly by a lot of gurus and influencers and coaches. They've made it some difficult, mystical thing to do that you need 37 studies to do. And what I want you guys to keep in mind, just like when I say that with strength, that again, inside of your individual leverages, so it does explain the discrepancy between size and strength and different people due to frame sizes and arm lengths and everything else. Ranges of motion, they're moving a weight, that 90% of your strength potential comes from your muscle mass. In other words, the thickness of the muscle fibers, the myofibular growth in the muscle tissue. That is what determines your strength, which therefore a bigger muscle has more strength potential. Doesn't mean it's automatically stronger, it has more potential for strength. Okay, do we understand the difference? All right. All the other stuff, the neural drive, intermuscular coordination, technique, everything else is about 10%. So let's come over and think of size the same way. Okay, everyone wants to complicate size. Instead of saying the same thing that I just told you there, for the size end, all the stuff that people talk about is only about 10% of our gains. What do we mean? Stuff people talk about. Can really control the eccentric overload. Ooh, there we go. Finding the right muscle angles, picking the perfect exercises, combining perfect exercises, taking ourselves up to the highest volume that we can recover from, finding that sweet spot. All that stuff. All of it is about 10%. How do we get the other 90%? Because that's what we focus on. People and experts and people, when they discuss nuance, they're always focusing on the last 5 to 10%. That is literally all they discuss. All right, how do we get bigger? Effective workload through a reasonable range of motion. So in other words, if you come into the gym, and let's discuss volumes. If you do 10 really hard sets, 10 hard sets a week for each muscle group, you will get bigger. Okay? On the training end, it doesn't mean all the other lifestyle factors are there, but the training side, you will get bigger. 10 really hard sets. Stick to mostly big movements with a good range of motion. Right? Example, you see me doing some deficit deadlifts there. You saw me doing some full range of motion curls where I lock my elbow at the bottom. You saw me doing some incline benches with a pause, some bench pressing with a pause with a minimal arch. All right? Those are all examples. Granted, some people will argue the rowing I showed may not be the best example. I do a lot of different types of rows. The moment I'm doing those, all the stuff is from 1 week of training. All right. In other words, train like the bodybuilders did from the 50s and 60s before everyone was on huge amounts of gear. Now, people will point out that some of those guys were on gear. Yeah, but it's nothing like what modern bodybuilders are on. Let's not even go into the open. The men's physique competitors today use many times, multifold over the amount of drugs that people were using in the 60s who were on gear. Possibly even, a lot of the 70s who were on gear. I'll go so far as to say that the average bodybuilder in the IFBB, like the pros, the guys making it to the Olympia, probably use less total drugs than the physique competitors do today. So just put that in perspective. So let's go further back. Let's go back 60s, 50s, all that. How are those guys training? Did some heavy work and then they lots of sets of 10. All the time. You've heard Leroy Colbert talk about that before he passed. He's like, I came in and everyone just did 3 sets of 10 on an exercise. And I'm not saying you have to do exactly 3 sets of 10. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying you have to do that exact thing, but it was simple. Okay? Train really close to failure. Doesn't mean you need to go to failure, not necessarily, but you need to be down close. For those 10 sets, at most 2 reps away for those 10. Now, could you add a little more for weak links? Sure. But keep in mind, even 10 is a good sweet spot. There's your starting point. If you're not growing at all, it's not because you're not doing enough sets. If you're doing 10 sets a week and you're not growing, it's absolutely not because you aren't doing enough. I want you to keep that in mind. Why? Because we're back over to that 90% versus 10% rule. You're probably not doing those sets hard enough. You're probably not focused enough. You're probably not getting a good stretch on movements. Probably not getting very close to failure. Okay? It's not because you're not doing enough total sets. Again, keep in mind, finding those optimal volumes is trying to chase those last few percentages. It's not to get the first 80 or 90%. All right. You need to eat sufficiently to grow. All right. You need to eat for the body weight you want to be at. We don't even have to talk about extreme bulking or cutting. We can talk about very slow bulking or cutting, even recomposition if you want. But you have to eat enough to grow. You should probably be raising your total energy turnover just so that you can eat more food even at maintenance. Why? Larger anabolic response in the body. Body produces more insulin, more IGF-1, whatever. So in other words, you eating 3,500 calories versus 2,500 calories, even if you have your total energy burn higher up at 3,500, you'll probably potentially gain more muscle. You'll probably recomposition easier, to be fair. Sufficient protein, sufficient nutrients. Sufficient sleep. Okay, again, are you getting enough sleep, or are you partying too hard? Are you up gaming all night? You're not getting 8 hours of sleep every night. Every single night, you need to change your lifestyle. Okay, there's your problem. So getting big is not that complicated. Pick decent movements, train hard, take some days off. All right? You guys are like, I train 6 days a week, and you're not on drugs? Are you stupid? You're not taking any drugs to speed up recovery, and you're lifting 6 days a week. Well, you can go do some cardio or walking or some conditioning, that's fine. You need to be lifting 6 days a week. It's insane. You're going to need drugs just to recover from it properly. Stop doing it. All right. Follow basic rules of progressive overload. Get stronger. Let's say you're doing 6 rep sets, 10 rep sets, whatever. Get stronger at them through the full range of motion. Pretty straightforward, guys. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.